1982, and they had it's like 12 or 14 kids, I think 12 kids.
Wow.
And they all lived in there. And then of course
Stay warm that way.
They added on and added on and added on. They were gonna tear it down about year 2000 and to build a new house. My cousin. And I said, well, you can't just tear that down. You know, there's the old homestead inside of there. So I managed to peel it away and disassemble it. And, and I reassembled it. Yeah, I couldn't. It was fun. It was the most fun I had in my life.
So you tore it completely new apart and then rebuilt it here, or was it actually there at one time? I mean, from the beginning.
No, it was maybe 5-6 miles away.
Okay.
And I disassembled it, and then I put it on a pile, and then you know, I numbered and everything, and then
there was another log cabin just down the road that we always take to go to Lynette's house. Somebody had done the same thing. They took it completely apart, disassembled it, and it said for sale. And I thought, wow, man.
The problem is if they sit too long, and then they start to rot.
Yeah.
Even this one, the top log started to twist.
Yeah.
And it was kind of hard to get it back, you know, especially when they fit flat on both ends, and if they twist a little bit, that's quite a... But,
especially it's all dovetailed like that,
But it's got wide joints, you know, unlike the Hansen house, you know, because those were fit real tight.
This one just took a lot of caulking, that's all.
Yeah.
What'd you caulk it with?
That's just mortar.
Okay, so you don't have any problem with freezing and thawing with the logs, then pushing it all out?
No, well, what I did is I put 2 inches of styrofoam in.
Oh, okay.
And then I caulked it inside and out because I figured the mortar would, you know, it'd shrink up.
Yeah, it would shrink, and then shrinking and so on, the logs would grind the mortar eventually, and knock it out. They do that. That happens with bricks a lot. If you use the wrong mortar with bricks, up on Fort Leavenworth or down at Fort Leavenworth, we had that problem where tower just ate itself.
Really?
Yeah, it just they used the wrong. It wasn't that they used the wrong mortar. They used the right mortar for 100 and something years ago, but somebody decided they wanted to paint the tower.
Oh, well then.
And then once they sealed it, all the moisture stayed in there, and then the brinks would shrink and swell. But the mortar was so hard, it literally ground the bricks to dust.
Yeah. Well, these logs were, when it was put together, the logs are just setting one on top of another. There's nothing holding them together except the
dovetail joints.
Yeah, because they draw it in. Mm-hmm. And actually, when I assembled it, I took a 12-foot 2x4 with a level on it, and then I could tweak it out a little bit.
How'd you do the doors? Because that's not dovetail there.
Well, there's just a board inside here, and I just nailed the, to the log. I nailed the jamb to the log. So it's real simple, and I made them all 36-inch because I figured it should be.
So it bolstered basically, they held up basically by the mortar, the foam, and everything else that's inside of there.
Well, there's a 2x8 or something in here.
Okay.
Or 2x6 that's in here that actually holds everything up, and when I was putting this together, I noticed that like this log here,
continuous,
it's like they used the same log. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they built it and then they cut out the openings later. I mean, that could be. Yeah. Because the original framing wasn't as nice as mine,
Mm-hmm.
because I already had it here, and there was an extra door that they put in here because my would have been my great-great-grandpa. They made this grandpa's room in here. Mm-hmm. This was actually part of the house. I just made it a porch.
Right.
But it's part of the original construction because the log has the notches in there. So they did put it in there. And I built it pretty much the same way that it was built. Of course, I put new windows in. Welcome that inside.
This is really nice.
I've never ever seen that.
This is plywood floor.
Yeah, I just plywood on the floor here. There would have been a chimney here, originally they had a chimney and then well, when we were kids, we used to go to the place and there was a kerosene heater in here.
Oh, yeah. We just gave one away.
No, yeah, it was, what do they call those? It's like an oil burner, you know,
Right.
it sits about that high.
Yeah.
But I decided to put a fireplace in. And
Oh, yeah.
I've got a crawl space under here, so I've got the furnace under there. But that was a picture of the original, you see, that would be my grandpa in that picture. At his wedding. And it was, the house was made the year he was born, 1882.
Wow.
So, you know, his parents came, was it Czech Bohemia at the time, you know, back in the 1870s, and they came up here the year of the Great Chicago Fire. So,
Oh, the Great Peshtigo fire.
yeah, I think that was the same time.
Same day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, more people died in the Peshtigo fire than the Chicago fire.
But they had, you know, like here, they had it was kind of traditional to cut a big window in, you know, have a big picture window in. So these two windows here were
Oh,
right
was it?
there.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, they cut so I put it back to the original. But I mean, if you're free to look through here, this is my.
You just had siding on it to protect the.
Oh yeah,
logs.
yeah. It was a sign of that you were poor if you had a log cabin. So they covered it up as soon as they could. But
Father couldn't afford it.
we got everybody involved. We were stripping the
Lath and plaster.
lath and plaster
Yeah.
off, and then this was kind of a neat picture because it was basically the log home in its original site, you know, back when,
Yeah.
Sure.
in modern day. And that was the start of, I didn't save anything on the roof. It would have been just impossible. But we started in the morning once we got the roof off, and we had it all down by the end of the day.
That's good.
But,
Yeah, they come down much quicker than they go up.
well, it was nice that there was no nails in the, you know, not or pegs or anything in the
Right.
corners, and even these
The floor joists.
floor joists they're just laying in the sockets there
Yeah.
like that, you know, and
Pop them out.
just had to pop them out, and they're nailed now. I thought that would give it a little more.
Well, in case the
strength.
wind comes up and you don't want it to fall apart. Yeah.
But you know, and it was really level. You can see in the corner there's little round circles. That's where I had the little tags from
Oh, for numbering.
numbering the logs.
Oh, yeah?
And then, you know, being that the logs were fully exposed, you know, I could pressure wash them and I bleached them.
Ah.
You know, got them all nice and clean. And actually all I did was linseed oil everything, the boards up on the top, and it's all linseed oil. Well, I got a little creative when I made the jams and the trim, because I wanted to do it kind of rustic looking. So I took like a cedar 4x4 and,
Yeah.
and then, you know, made a little shelf up there.
Beautiful.
And there was only one log I had to replace in the whole, other than, you know, the ones that were missing from the windows.
Got electric in there too. Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of frustrating because every log I put down, first I had to drill all the holes for the wires to come up through, and then put a string, you know, so
Yeah.
you could, you know, like a fish wire in. Yeah.
I'm comfy now.
And that rock, my brother, my oldest brother, when we were taking it apart, he had a thing for rocks. He decided he wanted the cornerstone, you know, so he picked a big rock and he rolled it up on his pickup truck. So when I started the fireplace, he comes over with this rock and he says, "I want you to put this in the fireplace." I'm like, you know,
Well, it works.
yeah, I did.
So was it stone foundation?
It was just stone, and then the logs were laid on top of it.
Right.
You know, stone, and then the floor was independent.
Right.
But it was really level. I put like a little marker on all four corners, and it was within an inch, you know, a half inch either way. So even the upstairs.
Level and square.
And what's interesting is, you know, you can see the lath marks on the,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can see back in, I think it was 32, where they drilled the holes for the wire.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
And when I first saw that, I thought, oh, geez, I should put new joists in there, because that's gonna look, you know. But, you know, it's
I would have
part of
never
it.
noticed that
Yeah.
if you hadn't told me.
And it's neat, because,
Part of the history.
yeah, it's part of the history.
I thought it was just a knot, you know, a knot.
Yeah, you know, and you can tell, I guess I got a couple over there kind of backwards, because you know, like there's holes here and
They had to
then.
drill from an angle this way.
Yeah.
When they did.
Yeah, that would have been a bedroom back there. Eventually, I want to make this like a tourist rooming house. I guess that's what the efficient.
B&B? Mm-hmm.
Just because I really don't use it. You know, we have a New Year's Eve party out here. You think that you could just take time and make a fire?
Yeah.
But we're just busy.
Yeah.
And then, if you want to take a peek upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
There's a time capsule in here. We had a family reunion here, and I didn't lay the hearthstone yet, so I invited everybody to, you know, put something in a time capsule. And my dad, he was a mason, so he put the mortar down. By the time he got to the other end, it was getting pretty hard.
Yeah.
He was pretty old, you know, and so he's passed away now. But well, when are you going to open it? And I said, I don't know. You know, we'll figure a date, you know.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff is on CDs, and there's some newspapers and stuff. But it was only from 2003.
But that's neat, I mean, then you can,
Yeah.
you know, go.
You know, and I'm thinking if you open it now, it's, you know, it's all the
yeah.
information everybody's got on the CD
Yeah.
or something.
Matt and Matt.
Yeah. Matt and Veronica were the original. Settlers here. It's a pretty good headspace.
Yeah.
Hi, Daisy. My wife and I were combined our families. And our dog. Well, and that, yeah, it's cool, because that pine my dad had in the shop, and I was wondering, even this right here. And one day I asked him, because he tried to sell it at a couple garage sales that he had, and he can build some holes in it, and put a board on, finding a door, you know, to get it straight. Oh, he says, that was Grandpa's. And I looked at him and I said, and you were trying to sell it for like $10. Yeah. And same with the ground. City government. you know.
Not having a bathroom in the place.
Yeah, well, they let me build it this far.
Yeah,
But
right.
when they talked about the water, it's like, well, you can't, I guess, yeah, I can't put water in here. This is the original stairway. So,
Yeah, the very narrow steps.
yeah, there's no railings yet. It's
Just a slightly leaning over ladder.
And he did the chimney at the
Yep.
Hanson house.
That's correct.
And I'm
That's
thinking,
beautiful work.
yes, he does.
When I look at like that metal piece there, now you think, well, if that wasn't there, that top log could start to roll out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the weight of the roof.
Right.
Push it right out.
And you know, there's no ties in here.
See, and if you,
And I had an architect up here, and he's looking at this, and he's going, And then I showed him where the pins were going through, and he says, well, yeah, he says, essentially, he says, they made a big beam out of the sides. And I mean, even this log here, this one, really, I mean, you look at the way it bows in, and it's like, wow, when I rebuild this, I'm going to push that back. Well, I couldn't, because that's how everything lined up, and that's the way it was. And who knows, maybe they did that for
For a reason.
yeah. Maybe they figured there's some pressure on it that, it wouldn't. So I just,
yeah, I mean, and inside it's great to see it, but like at the Hansen house where they covered everything, you miss all of that history.
Right.
You go in and I totally understand why they did it, because it preserves the building, but it's, you see
Yeah.
a finished building, you don't see how they constructed it.
but they're also covering up a lot of the
The beauty of it, I mean, to think that was probably hand.
Oh yeah, all these were hand hewn.
Yeah.
Talking about the strength of one log. We've got a barn, hay barn, that had cows underneath this barn. And the wall in that barn, on the east wall, is over here. This is overhanging that. So the only logs holding all of this are the two ends in here. And that's still standing the way they built it.
Right, and
And you figure snow load on a roof is unbelievable. Especially this winter when we had so much snow.
Yeah.
I finally realized how much weight there is up there.
Oh yeah.
And to have all that weight on that, I think it's like 2 logs holding them rafters up there. And it's an overhang.
well, and think,
And
like
I
this
thought,
one where
when I
there's
first
no.
saw it, I thought, wow, was that stupid to build a barn like that overhanging?
What were they
That
thinking,
damn thing is gonna collapse and go right over like
Yeah.
a
And all of
falls,
that knowledge that we've
To have
lost,
that.
and the workmanship that we don't see today. You go into Home Depot or a building store and you just, oh yeah, I'll take that 2x4. It's just, and that was when we went to see the Hansen house, when all the siding was gone and the inside was pretty much gutted. I could stare at the workmanship all day long just to see. The moss was still soft.
Yeah.
How tight does it have to have moss that's still soft 200 years later?
Yeah.
And to see, nowadays, this barn
Well-
would have been torn down and all of this would have been rotted.
Well, even reconstructing this today, if I were to do this today versus, in 2003, 10 years ago, or whatever, the restrictions, they probably would have looked, you can't use this kind of lumber,
Yeah.
And before it was 2x4s, and everything's got to be to all these new regulations and codes and everything, and, fortunately now they recognize this as being a historic building. When I put the floor, the roof joists in here, I took a pattern from the original 2x4 and cut it exactly. It was like a double notch, and I just pretended like it was all going to work out. And I put them all up and put them in the sockets there, and I put a string across, and it was so close. It was perfect. It was unbelievable.
What a thrill that was.
Well, I thought, oh, can you imagine
If it's all
individually shimming each one, and then there was a double notch here, and that's why I figured, well, that had to be planned when they built the house, because once this roof was on, how would they make that notch? And this is all, they did all of this.
Yeah.
It's just really cool to see that.
You should put a coin in each one of them. And then the older this building gets, the coins are there. Nobody knows they're there.
Until the next person comes and takes it apart and goes,
Yeah.
how did they do this?
Then you have all them dates and them coins.
You can explain it to me, boss.
Do you ever
Yeah.
do the back plastering? They put another board across inside here.
Oh,
And they
okay.
pour concrete in behind. And then there's the airspace, the lats and the plaster.
Okay.
You call that back plastering.
There was a house down the road here that had some really interesting, it was, I don't know what type of building it was. I should have grabbed it, but my wife told me, you can't save them all, you know. But each stud was actually mortars intended into the bottom log.
Yeah.
It was a square cut hole in the log, and every 16 inches, the stud had a little 2x2 on, you know, it was notched out.
Yeah.
And then the joists were notched in there, and then the walls had, basically they had put little strips of wood in there, and they had put clay in between and a board and filled it up.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable how they basically insulated. Yeah, a skill saw took this whole roof off. I basically cut it, like I would cut it like here, like all the way up and down,
Oh, yeah.
and then I take some 2x4s and I spread it apart and then flop each side. I didn't have to worry about
Yeah.
cleaning up because, you know, I was just after, you know, they were going to demolish the house
My
anyway.
brother,
She actually is a professional artist. Awesome. Yeah. She makes a...
It's my business. Well, that's good. I like it.
I really
a lot of
haven't,
linseed oil, I guess, yeah.
I haven't done anything since I originally linseed oiled it. And the inside looks great. The outside is dark.